Now, DIFC has made one of the biggest changes to its prescribed company regime and making it more accessible to a wider range of investors and families, but it comes with additional compliance requirements. Before we start this video, I would like to clarify that prescribed company and SPVs, that is special purpose vehicle, are the same thing. In ADGM, it is called SPV. In DIFC, it is called prescribed company. Now, let's get into what a prescribed company is, what it can do for you, and what are the changes. So, prescribed company is basically a passive investment holding company. It can be owned on its own, or it can sit under a trust in a foundation. It is formed in the DIFC common law regime. So, the applicable law is the common law. The applicable courts is the DIFC courts. It does not go into the local Dubai courts or the local civil law. Now, that's what prescribed company is, and it is used to hold assets. For example, real estate, stocks, bonds, equities, loans, agreements, and anything that you want to put under a holding company that can eventually go under a foundation or a trust. So, previously, the scope of DIFC's holding companies or prescribed companies was a bit limited, and that has now recently changed. Previously, there was a requirement that a prescribed company and DIFC must have a GCC asset that is called the Nexus Requirement. So if you have a holding company, you must have a property or company or any other local GCC assets. GCC means the wider region, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, UAE. It should not have been limited just to UAE, but there was a basic requirement that there should be one local asset under the prescribed company for it to be a functional holding company. So once you form the prescribed company, you have 6 months to put a local asset into it. If you don't put it, you are in non-compliance. It does not mean that the prescribed company cannot own foreign assets. It can own foreign entities. For example, we have clients who have holding companies in Africa that owns property in Africa. So the properties in Africa goes under the holding company, and that holding company is owned by the prescribed company in DIFC. However, this is allowed to own foreign assets, but you had a minimum requirement of a GCC nexus. So, one asset from GCC should be under the prescribed company for it to be compliant. However, the good news is that DIFC has removed this requirement. And what happens is that now you can form a prescribed company or an SPV, also known as holding company in DIFC, and then go and own your foreign assets directly under it. And what it enables is to allow more investors and families globally to use DIFC as a holding structure where they can own their assets. For example, we have clients who do this through Mauritius entities, through Singapore, through Hong Kong, but DIFC was in isolation where it comes to foreign international holding companies, that it was only the families who had GCC assets. They were opening DIFC holding companies, putting their GCC assets inside it, and then adding any other foreign assets into it. But with this requirement, it enables you to bypass that GCC Nexus requirement and own your assets globally. And I think with this, DIFC is now stepping up its perception of a global jurisdiction rather than just a GCC-based jurisdiction. That's what they're trying to do. Now, along with that, they have a very important and additional requirement that has to be implemented by all new prescribed companies that have been formed, as well as the prescribed companies that have already been formed. They have 6 months to comply with this requirement. Otherwise, there would be a $20,000 fine if you are in non-compliance. Now, what is this requirement? So it is for you if you own a prescribed company in DIFC that you have to appoint authorized CSP or corporate service provider in DIFC. Before, this was not a mandatory requirement. We are CSPs in DIFC. What we do is we help you create the prescribed companies, maintain their compliances, be a bridge between you and DIFC, as well as provide you registered office services. However, most of the companies, if you don't want it, if you have a legal team, you can most probably do 90% of the work for the CSP. However, now with the new requirements, DIFC has made it mandatory for you to hire a CSP and give over the compliance and the reporting work as much as it pertains to the DIFC compliance requirements for the CSP to do that instead of you doing that. So that's one of the requirements, as well as for you to use the registered office address of the CSP and be the bridge between you and the DIFC. So what happens if you don't comply? So you have 6 months to hire a CSP. If you don't do that, there is a $20,000 fine for non-compliance, and then your prescribed company will be under non-compliance status until you hire a CSP eventually. Now, there are certain exemptions that are like exempted prescribed companies, but they are very limited. So they're either authorized companies, government entities, or public listed companies. But apart from that, the clients that we deal with, the private wealth and asset holding prescribed companies, for certainly they should appoint a CSP. For all the clients that we were already setting up, for example, when we set up foundations and trusts, and there are any GCC assets that needs to go under a holding structure, we were already using DIFC prescribed company for that purpose, and then putting all the assets under the prescribed company and then moving that prescribed company under a trust or foundation. It can be a local trust or foundation, either in DIFC or ADGM. It can also be an international trust or foundation. We are doing trusts and foundations in Singapore, in Hong Kong. We are doing it in Cook Islands. We are also doing it in Malaysia and Mauritius. So it depends on where your family is based in, where your family's nexus is, where your family business is operating, where your beneficiaries are. But if there is a local GCC asset, we can put it under a prescribed company and then move it under a family wealth structure. And that is what we were already doing. Once we set up those prescribed companies, we were already registered as the CSP for our clients. So there is not much adjustment that we need to do on our end for the existing clients that we have. But if you are someone who owns DIFC structures, you have a DIFC prescribed company, and you have not already appointed a CSP, I would recommend that you can connect with me and my team. The links will be in the description below, and we can see how we can help you transition from a non-CSP based structure to a CSP based structure within the next 6 months and help you comply with these new requirements. Well, that's it for today. And if you need any help with your family wealth structure, for example, trusts, foundations, holding companies in multiple jurisdictions that we work in, you can reach out to me as well. Links will be in the description below, and I will see you in the next video.